let's get into it. So today I'm here. I got a little surprise for you guys later, but I'm here to do some reviews for the last couple games I have beat since the last time. The first one I have to talk to you about is Persona 3 Reload. All right. Now this game, I had it on my radar because it was free on Game Pass, which I think is really cool. And the only experience I had with the Persona game before was Persona 5. That shit was winning like Game of the Year like 4 years ago. Like that actually did hotcakes. And people were loving it. People who never even touched the series before were loving it. And I played it at the time, and as is kind of a theme, pre-Steam Deck and everything. And my schedule used to suck for work. I used to like rotate shifts, and I didn't know if I was coming or going. So it's sometimes harder to stick with a longer game. You know what I mean? So I didn't get very far in Persona. But also part of it was that I didn't love it. You know what I'm saying? And I also played a Shin Megami Tensei, like a 3DS one. Number 4 maybe, I don't know. It seemed kind of lame to me in a way because it's almost like Pokemon. You're collecting Personas, I guess they're called or whatever, but there's probably like over 100 of them. There's just so many. And to me, it seems like there's so many that they're just irrelevant. Like I just picked them based off like, oh, this one looks cool, or I was sick of the last one, so I'll just get the new one. You know what I mean? They don't seem like they matter. I would much rather there only be like 12 of them, but they're all like really important for different situations, or they allow you to have different play styles or something where they're significant. You know what I mean? And just because you got it like towards the beginning of the game doesn't mean it's irrelevant now. You know, like in Persona, you get a new one, you're like, you know, fuck the old one. And so they all just blend together in the end. They're not special, especially because like it's like, all right, so this one's a fire elemental one, so he just replaces all the other fire elemental ones I had. It's just I don't understand this love for the Pokemon thing. I liked it when I was a kid too, you guys, but I just don't think it's that special. I have so many thoughts on this game. It's going to be hard to get through this because first of all, it's a huge fucking game, and I almost quit it. Like I went through this whole like guilt cycle. Around hour 40, I was so drained by this game. I was like, nothing's happening in the storyline. You know what I mean? And people on Reddit were like, stick with it, it gets better, like around the hour 45 mark, you know what I mean? Which is crazy. And I was pissed. I was like, I don't even care if it gets better. Like 40 fucking boring hours, like that takes its fucking toll on the thing. You can't even consider it great if it had 40 mediocre hours. You know what I mean? And I like quit it. I deleted it from my Steam Deck, and then I was like sitting up in bed a couple days later. I was like, fuck. Reading the Reddit forums and convinced me to go back, right? And I sort of like begrudgingly, I was like, I kind of like it. And I was like, it is getting better. Like more is starting to happen. And it's funny because I don't really like the takeaway from this story. I would love if the story was like, yeah, like I quit it and I felt relieved. I never went back. Or if I was like, yeah, I beat it and it sucked and I should have like at least have some resolution. But I'm like, like I stuck through 40 boring hours and then I kind of liked it. I kind of ended up liking it, but I have big, major issues with it for sure. The stakes were like world-ending stakes. You know what I mean? It was supposed to be life and death stakes, and I just thought it was like corny and like melodramatic. It just has this sort of cartoony art style, and the characters are all sort of just upbeat and like. And I never felt in threat. Also, like the combat was not very hard to me. And at first you know, props to them because they had a hard mode, and at first I was using it for quite a while. But then when I convinced myself to come back to the game, I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to play it on hard mode. I'm not just going to like extend an experience I don't like, which I actually kind of might have regretted by the end, where I was like, like, retrospect is 2020, but I was like, maybe if I had kept it on hard, it would have been an even more rewarding experience. But it did feel like the stakes in the story were like so high, but I never bought it. I never felt like anyone was at risk, or I never felt concerned or anything like that. It just seemed like kind of like a cartoon to me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I was thinking like, man, like Stephen King or someone would make high school seem way more terrifying than these guys. You know what I mean? It seemed kind of just boring. It didn't seem dangerous. So it was very repetitious. very much repetitious. And this is part of the reason why I felt like nothing was happening for so long. So basically, you live in this dormitory, it's high school dormitory with these other kids, and there's this fucking 25th hour in the day that only they can experience. Everyone else who doesn't have their fucking persona powers or whatever, they're just like comatose during this time of day. But they're fully conscious during this time of day. There's like this twisted, dark version of their town during the dark hour. And there's this fucking tower that ascends up through the fucking clouds. It's like 300 floors. You know what I mean? It's called Tartarus. And you have to keep going there at nighttime and like clearing different floors. Each month you got to make it to a certain floor, and then there's a boss fight there. You know, you got to beat that boss. So you have to be ready for the boss, because it's like once you get to that point, if you're not strong enough, you know, if you didn't level up enough or whatever, you could have a really fucking hard time at that boss. Although I think there's like a rewind feature, because this is like the reloaded version, because this is, you know, this game's 15 years old or whatever. So this is, it might have some quality of life features, and that's part of it, because some quality of life features actually kind of, in my opinion, kind of neutered the game a little bit, because like it just made it so easy. You know what I mean? Like there used to be this fatigue meter where you're climbing Tartarus, your characters are getting tired and they have to tap out at some point. That works thematically with the fact that it's the dark hour. You know, I read that existed. I didn't experience that personally because it's not in this version of the game. And I could keep my characters in there for literally like 10 hours and just grind and just, you know what I mean? They're supposed to get tired and you have to sub party members out or just leave entirely. And the effect that has is I'm supposed to, you know, every night of that month, I'm supposed to dole out the time to whatever objectives I'm trying to complete. You know what I mean? Hang out with these characters or raise these stats or have a part-time job or whatever. And you're supposed to balance that with going to Tartarus and, you know, becoming strong enough to fight the boss and advancing through the tower and stuff. You're supposed to balance that. But in the game where they strip away the fatigue meter, you can just dedicate one night to being in the dark hour where you spend fucking hours in there grinding, and you just do it in one night, and then you have plenty of time to dole out to everything. So now you're having this experience which was not the tailored, intended, designed way of, you know, playing the game. Which, you know, I always hate when you buy like a game of the year version of a game or whatever, and they just throw you like, you know, specialty items that you should only have in like your second playthrough. So like, oh yeah, they'll give you the fucking golden gun, and now you can run through the campaign one-shotting everything. It's like, that's not a reward or a perk. You're ruining it. You know what I mean? So in their attempt to make it more casual, I feel like they ruined it. But I can't speak to the original version of the game. I mean, maybe this is kind of how that was too. And then that sucked. You know, then that was wrong too. You know what I mean? It's so repetitive. Because every month you're just making it to the new floor, new floor, new floor, new floor, new floor. And there's like tiny little story beats towards the beginning. And you're just like this average high school student. You know what I mean? And they have you doing these like social links, which levels up different personas if you max out a certain social link, which is just like the strength of your relationships, I guess, like that. So the first thing about that is most of the relationships that you're maxing out are with just like these normal fucking people who live like uninteresting lives, and you're just hanging out with these people. You know what I mean? And the people on Reddit will defend it. They're like, they're not boring, it's symbolic. That's sort of like the theme of the game, is that these are just like your everyday relationships. And I was like, nah, they're boring. You know what I mean? Like joining the student fucking council or joining the track team or something. The storyline for the track team was this guy, he's injured his leg, and he wants to keep running anyway because he's got this track meet coming up. And everybody's telling him, bro, you're going to hurt yourself, dog. You're going to cause yourself permanent damage. Like, you got to stop. And he's just like, I can't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. You know, and he refuses to just listen to reason. And he keeps running and running. And it's like I hang out with him on Tuesday. Stop, man. You got to stop. He's like, no, I'm going to keep running. Hang out with him on Thursday. Eventually, he comes to the conclusion that he's got to stop running. And then it's like, that's the end of the storyline. I was like, wow, he came to the conclusion, and I told him fucking 10 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't significant to me at all. That just seemed like a waste of time. One, you're hanging out with like a fat kid. He takes you to different restaurants. He calls himself the gourmet king. You know what I mean? And you're just hanging out with him, and then he's like in a cult or something like that. It's just like they don't really go anywhere, and there's sort of no point to them. But people on Reddit would tell you like that is the point. You know what I mean? Like it's the everyday relationships that we form that are so important and so symbolic or whatever, you know what I mean? And they're like the theme of the game. There's like this theme of like death and finality and stuff to the game. And I'm like, I'm not talking about themes, man. This shit was just boring. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, dude. I played the game for 80 hours and I didn't take some moving message away from the game at all. You know what I mean? I did start to kind of enjoy the plot and what was happening, but I was not moved on some other level. You know what I mean? As an adult, man, I don't really care about high school, first of all. You know, I never thought high school was a very good setting for a show. You know what I mean? And I think I read somewhere that, like, the reason more things aren't, for instance, set in college is because everyone can relate to high school because everyone's been in the high school setting. You know what I mean? So it's, like, really relatable or whatever. But I always thought high school was fucking lame as a setting. You know, high school was lame in real life. You know what I mean? I had my friends and everything like that, and we had a good old time, but shit's just gotten better since then. High school kind of sucked. You know what I mean? So I don't have this romantic concept of high school where I want to watch these TV shows and all these. You know, a lot of anime, I feel like, is set in high school, or at least the characters are high school age, and I don't know why that is. And maybe that's why I have found it hard to relate to that medium. It's because it seems kind of juvenile, to be honest with you. I know it's not a popular sentiment, but that's really how it feels to me. But yeah, high school sucked. Like, this game had me studying for my midterms and shit like that. This shit's trash. You know what I mean? I didn't even do that shit in real life. They got me doing it in the game, had me studying. I never studied in real life. You know what I'm saying? It's funny because basically the only things I can think of to tell you are negative things. And that was kind of indicative of my playthrough. Maybe it was like Stockholm Syndrome, where I ended up kind of liking it at the end. You know what I mean? But here's one thing is where the game was so easy, and I don't just mean in the amount of damage I dealt relative to the enemy's HP, not just the like balance of damage, but the actual design itself was so easy. So you have this like assist character who doesn't take part in the actual battle, but they'll like call out hints and tips and stuff like that. So if you've fought a persona before, you uncover its weaknesses. So basically when you first target a persona you haven't seen before, it'll just be question marks over all the different damage types you can deal. Like you can deal slashing damage, striking damage, or piercing damage. That's your physical attacks. And then for magic, it's the elements. It's like earth, wind, fire, lightning, light, and dark, whatever. And so it'll just show question marks for everything until you land a single attack of that element, and it'll reveal what its weaknesses are, right? And then your assist character will remember that forever. You don't have to remember anything manually. This character will just call it out. So if you've seen the enemy before, she'll just be like, this one's weak to thunder magic or whatever. The weakness is so important in this game because if you can hit it with their weakness, it's fully incapacitated and you can do like a full party attack and shit like that. It's actually very overpowered. So the coolest part of the game was when, you know, after you beat a boss and then the checkpoint is lifted and you can rise through Tartarus again on new unexplored floors. That's the coolest part of the game, is encountering new monsters. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not just fucking easy. If you encounter it, it's like, oh, I've seen this one before, and I don't even have to remember. Like, I could easily remember, oh, it's weak to lightning, and that would at least involve me somehow. But now this character would just say, oh, it's weak to lightning, so then I just do lightning and kill it, and it's just like the game's kind of playing itself. So then you also get an ability where your ally character can just scan them and just tell you what the weaknesses are. So the only fights in the game that are actually kind of cool are like some of the boss fights either won't have weaknesses or it'll be like two enemies that sort of cover up for each other or something. Like occasionally there's some sort of thought you had to put into a fight, but 90% of the time you were just fucking grinding on these enemies basically, and it just fell flat for me, man. It just fell flat. So the protagonist is a silent protagonist, which is fucking my pet peeve. That, you know, I've heard people say, like, oh, a silent character, that allows me to project myself on. Like, get the fuck out of here. I know I'm not a secret agent or something like that. I'm just playing a video game. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm the guy. You know what I mean? I'm not stupid. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not thinking it's me. I'm not playing as myself. I'm playing as this character. He's a fucking person. You know what I mean? So in this game, you get some dialogue choices. They both amount to the same thing. They both pretty much say the same fucking thing. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, it's not like, oh, well, this is really happening to me. This is me. No, obviously this is not me. And oh, okay, here's one more thing about the character. And it's kind of even more funny that it's a silent protagonist. But in this game, you are the coolest person who's ever lived. You're the most desirable person. Women want you. Men want to be you. I don't know why. You got this goofy fucking haircut with the bangs and shit like that. Trust me, dog. Everybody in this game, if you are a named character, not just like some random NPC number 7, if you're a named character in this game, you profess your love profusely to the main character at least once in this game. Every single one. This is what I meant when I said, like, the game is kind of cringe and, like, I was kind of rolling my eyes and it's so melodramatic and stuff like that. And it's not realistic. Like, in high school, you'll have a couple moments where you really have, like, a heart-to-heart, like, touching, vulnerable moment. But this shit happens with fucking, like, people you barely know. You know what I mean? This shit, you know, you hang out with someone 10 times and they tell you, you know, you're their fucking role model and you've saved their life and, you know, all this fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? I swear, every female character in this game falls in love with you if you keep hanging out with them. And it's not even like, you don't even have to pick one, dude. You can just do it with all of them. And then the game doesn't really change. Like, you'll have the cutscene where, you know, you're together or whatever like that. But then you could see their NPC just in the world after that. And the game isn't designed to, like, account for the fact that you're dating them. So they just, like, won't really interact with you or whatever. So you're just like, oh, like, I know I'm with them. But nothing changes about the game. So that it kind of shows its age there too. But yeah, it's just like really cringe that, like, the girls are just falling all over this fucking silent protagonist. You know what I mean? Like, everyone is just so grateful for you that you really helped them turn their life around and you helped them fucking grow as a person and they'll never forget you. You know what I mean? Everyone. I'm not exaggerating. It's like, it's so unsubtle. Like, if someone, I feel like if a good, competent writer who knew how people speak and how people behave made this game, I think it really could, like, someone better could do, like, a really good job with that. And, like, I could squint and see the potential. And I wonder, although I suspect not, but I wonder if they perfect the formula. Like, I hear Persona 4 is really great. You know what I mean? But I just suspect not, because I did play some Persona 5 at the time when it came out, and it seemed highly theatrical and over the top to me as well, with, like, this cartoonish anime style. So I have low hopes for that. Basically, I can't recommend this to anybody. I really can't. It took me like 75 hours to beat the game, and I didn't even beat the DLC. They're going to launch the DLC soon, and it's like another 30 hours, and I'm not going to play. I don't care. I really don't care. I am kind of glad that I stuck through it and experienced it, and it did sink its hooks into me eventually, begrudgingly. I really can't recommend it. And I mean, I've talked about it for like 20 minutes. I didn't really say anything good. I really didn't say anything good. But I don't know, man. I really don't know. I could keep rambling about it, but I don't think I'm going to get at the heart of it any more than I already have. So I guess I'll just cut myself off.